Hello everybody. Welcome to Creating the Basic Adaptable Game Engine Library, Part 54, Asteroids, Shields. In the previous videos, we've added most of the core features to the Asteroids game. You can control a spaceship and fly it around the screen. There are rocks, which are flying around the screen as well, and you can shoot the rocks with lasers. There's even a really cool explosion effect that happens once a laser comes into contact with an asteroid. However, there's no way to lose the game right now. Traditionally, if a rock hits a spaceship, then the spaceship would be destroyed. But we don't necessarily want the game to end right away after taking a single hit. There's two ways around this. One way is the concept of lives, which is to say, when a spaceship is destroyed, you have a limited number of spaceships in reserve and a new spaceship appears. Kind of like you get a do-over. Alternatively, and kind of equivalently, is the idea of health points, meaning maybe the ship can take a certain amount of damage before it gets destroyed. And so we're going to go with that approach, kind of a health point style approach, or maximum amount of damage. However, how do we convey this information to the player? We could use our label class and display some text on the screen to represent how many more hits the player could sustain. However, in this video, we're going to take a more graphics-centered approach. In particular, we're going to have a shield object. It's kind of like a glowing spherical force field that will surround the ship and kind of prevent the ship from getting hit by rocks, kind of like a buffer. If the shield hits a rock, then the rock will get destroyed. The shields will fade out a little bit, and the player can continue playing until the shields take enough damage that they disappear entirely. And then at that point, one more hit will destroy the spaceship. So this is the mechanic we're going to implement in this video. First, let's head over to our development environment. So here we are at IntelliJ, and the image that we're going to use is supposed to look like a glowing blue sphere. So the first step is going to be to add that to our game. Let's go back to the Asteroids class, and we're going to add a new sprite object, a public sprite. I'll call it Shields. We want it to appear on top of the spaceship, so really the only restriction is we need to add it after the spaceship is added to the main group, so it renders on top. So here we'll say shields equals a new sprite. We'll create a texture, shield text equals new texture. That comes from the images directory, shields.png. In addition, we're going to want to add this to our game. Oh, first we've got to set the sprite to have this as a texture. So shields.set texture to be shield tech. And then let's add shields to the game. So for the main group, we will add shields. All right. The next step is going to be to make sure that the position of the shields is synchronized with the position of the spaceship. Right, there's a few ways we could do this. In retrospect, one thing we could have done is we could have made something called, spaceship group, and to that group we could have added both the spaceship sprite and also the shield object. And then if we apply movement to the group, it would have automatically been applied to both those objects. However, we'll do a different approach in this video. What we'll do during the update method is we'll take the shields and we'll add it directly. So let's see, if shields, no, not if shields, let's say shields dot position dot set, or no, shields dot set position, right? And the position of the shield should match the position of the spaceship. So spaceship.position.x, spaceship.position.y. All right, so this will move the shields so they overlap the spaceship exactly. And let's go ahead and test this. And we also might want to add some code later which also rotates the shields as the spaceship itself is rotating. And so they are moving as a unit, so that's good. Yeah, I think I also do want to make the shields a little bit smaller, so it's a slightly tighter fit. Right, this would be kind of overpowered, this huge protective zone. All right, still kind of a cool effect though. All right, so let's make the shields a little bit smaller. So shields.set size, maybe, not sure how big this spaceship is. I think this will be big enough. And then shields.set angle to be the spaceship.angle. All right, let's try that again. And now hopefully the shields will follow the spaceship more closely and be a tighter fit. Program's compiling. There we go. So we've got kind of our little protective barrier around the spaceship. Very cool. All right, the next thing we want to do is whenever the shields overlap with a rock, let's make the shields a little bit more dim, and then we'll also say destroy the rock and make an explosion. And so let's add this towards the end of the update loop. And so let's see, this double for loop checks whether a rock overlaps a laser. So now let's say for each, we could do this actually within this loop. Right, so we've got the rock here, and then let's say if the shields overlaps the rock, then we will destroy the rock. We'll say rock dot remove self. And also, let's dim the shields a little bit. Let's maybe say shields.opacity minus equals 25. Right? Or in this case, if opacity is a decimal value, you want to make that 0.25. Now let's go ahead and double check that in the sprite class just to be sure. Yep, opacity is actually double. So I want it to reduce by 25% every time it gets hit. Right, and in addition, I'd really like the rock to self-destruct. Right, so in this case, I really want to do another explosion in that case. So a lot of this same code is going to be copied and pasted. Right, we're going to want the sprite explosion to be created. Right, so the shields get dimmer, make an explosion, clone the animation, align the explosion to the rock, and then make the explosion disappear after the animation is finished. All right, so let's go ahead and give this a try. In this case, I'm going to try to wait for the rocks to hit the spaceship to see what happens. All right. I move a little bit closer here. All right, so you see the shields getting a little bit dimmer. Right, the big problem is that even after the shields are completely dimmed, after the opacity goes down to 0, right, the shields are still destroying things. So we probably also want to say, right, if the shields overlap the rock and the shield's opacity is greater than 0. In that case, we'll destroy the rock. Right, so this will be a protective barrier. Otherwise, we'll want to go ahead and destroy the spaceship. And so down here, now I'll say, let's see, so first we're checking for each rock if the shields overlap the rock. Destroy that. Before we check for rocks overlapping with lasers, maybe we'll say if rock dot overlaps spaceship, then we'll want to, in this case, destroy the spaceship. So maybe we'll say spaceship dot remove self. And also at the same time, we'll want to eventually display like a game over message. And so I'll leave that as a to-do, game over message appears. All right, let's go ahead and give this a run. And so now, hopefully, we should see the spaceship ultimately get destroyed. Let me go ahead and wait for some rocks to come down. Oh, and my spaceship seems to be gone. That test didn't go so well. And there's actually a couple problems with this code. The spaceship is removed from the group, but the spaceship variable still exists in memory and could cause additional collisions. And so it still exists even though we can't see it on the screen. And then the problem is, what if a rock overlaps a spaceship again? Right, then it's going to try to remove itself, but it has no more parent after it's been removed. So I'm going to leave this code commented out for now. Right, this is the game over condition. So we'll fix this a little bit later. All right, so that means that we have a shield mechanic which is up and working. We still have to deal with game over, and we will deal with that at some point in the future. But for now, let me run this one more time. Right? And we're just going to test to make sure that the shields take exactly 4 hits, after which point, right, there's no more protecting the spaceship. So it destroys 1, so it's at 75% opacity, 2, it's at 50%. So at this one, 3, and then 4. And in theory, at this point, the next hit would destroy the spaceship, except I removed that bit of code. So the shields last for exactly as long as we're hoping. Right? And in a future video, we'll talk about how to properly do a game over. For this video, we have working shields, so we're one step closer to a finished game. So that's probably a good breaking point for now. Thanks for watching.